Good afternoon, good afternoon, good afternoon. We ready to go? No, I'm not late. I'm on our time. Welcome to the GA4 Justice with the community activists, the one that keep this talk show moving in the right direction, giving you information and knowledge to make sure you make the right choices. I'm talking about the one and only Miss Georgia Allen. Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I'm excited as always. It is Thursday. How about that?
Hey.
Every week coming to you live. Again, I'm Georgia F. Allen, and this is GA for Just Is, because it just is the right time to do those things that are right by ourselves, our community. Again, most of you know that I love the Kwanzaa principles. And so throughout the whole month of August, we're going to focus on Imani. Imani is faith, to believe with all of our hearts in our people and the righteousness and the victory of our struggle. And I focus on Kwanzaa principles simply because we get so caught up with all of the foolishness that's going on. We need something to balance us, something to, almost like having cement to hold us in place so that we're not all over, jumping on everything that comes along. We need to be able to be steadfast, immovable, when we're working on behalf of our community. I'm a firm believer in that. And so, as always, I always like to open up the show each and every week to bring you greetings, every Thursday on behalf of our one and only host. As always, we want to thank Mr. Henderson Vaughn, aka Captain 85, aka the Dream Maker, who's willing week after week after week to open up the airwaves so that we can bring to our listening audience a simple conversation, a conversation for information, a conversation for correction when necessary, as well as a conversation for transformation, because there's a lot of work to do out here. Last week, of course, I talked about straight up because I wanted to make sure that we do not forget a major segment of our community, which is our straight African American men. They're starting to feel a little bit left out because there's this group and this organization, that organization. And sometimes without us really intentionally leaving someone out, we find ourselves in situations where they may feel like they're being left out. And so I just want us to remember, don't forget our Black straight men. And as many of you know, I am with the oldest civil rights organization in the nation, the NAACP. And just as a disclaimer, most of you are aware that I am part of the civil rights organization, that I am a community activist and have been for decades. Therefore, the various positions that I take are mine and mine alone. I do not speak on behalf of any groups or any organizations. So I like to use that disclaimer because it's real easy for people to think that when I'm speaking, that I'm speaking on behalf of this person or that person. No, these are my opinions in many instances. And when there is something that I'm going to talk about with regards to any organization or whatever, I'm going to speak from the platform that they have, or if they have talking points or issues or what have you, I will let you know in advance that I'm speaking on behalf of this particular stance that is being taken. Today's topic, of course, is count the cost, vote. And I chose that from a scripture because it's Imani and because it's Faith Month. I'm trying to use a scripture each week. So if I mess up, make sure that you put it to my head and not to my heart, but I will try to stay on topic. And that scripture is Luke 14:28 through 29. For which of you, intending to build a tower, sitteth not down first and counteth the cost, whether he have sufficient to finish it, lest happily, after he has laid the foundation and is not able to finish it, all that behold it began to mock him. So I say that to my listening audience today because we see all these campaigns going on all over the place. And I ask myself, have all of these people who are running for office, have they counted the costs? And are we losing elections because we have not laid the proper foundation and we have not put in place the finance that's necessary, not just to start a race, but to finish it and to win a race? So make sure when you're getting into a fight that you've counted the cost, that you put the process in place, and you made sure that you have everything that you need to finish. Because I find that a lot of times, um, especially in a state like Virginia, we have elections every single solitary year, and and the minute somebody see, oh wow, let me jump on the bandwagon, let me jump in this race, or let me do this, or let me do that, and you end up finding that persons are jumping into races and splitting votes here, there, and everywhere. And at the end of the day, nobody wins the race, and someone, this horse, and I don't like to use the word dark horse because I know that most of those things have been put in place intentional to program us to believe that that dark horse is a negative horse. So what I like to say is they add an extra horse to the race that wasn't there in the first place. So that's why when I'm talking to my listening audience and I'm talking about voting or I'm talking about counting the costs, I want you to be careful as you get involved in the political process. Know your enemies and know your friends, and know those who say, I got your back, but we just finished saying smiling faces.
Mhm.
Sometimes they don't tell the truth. So
Hello.
know the people that are actually telling you the truth. And sometimes you may not want to hear truth, but if you're going to really, if you are going to win races, you need truth. Okay. You need to be able to count the cost, because when you have truth, now you'll be able to look at things a little differently. Because if you don't have all the information, if someone is simply just patting you on the back and just supporting you with their mouth, but not with actions, that's not going to work very well for you. And I'll use an example with people not counting the cost. We have a tendency to support everybody and his brother, but we don't always get that support in return. And if we're counting the costs and we're getting into a fight, make sure that you're getting into the right fight. Okay. And I'll use this as an example. We've had Congress people that should have been winners in their various races in primaries, but you find that they are knocked out of primaries because of the positions that they have taken, and not necessarily positions for themselves or for the neighborhood or the community or the district that they live in. If they live in a district that is predominantly people that look like them, you may not want to get into all of these other fights. And so, what you want to do is, if you're going to get in a fight and you live in a area where you have a problem with law enforcement, where they're just over and over again giving tickets only to your Black constituents, you may want to look at that congressional seat and how that budget is being done, and make sure you allocate money to come back into your district so that you can hold your police force accountable. If you're in a situation where you find that you're in a district where you have food deserts all over the place, and you're looking at how funding is being done for the Food and Drug Administration, you might want to make sure that when you're voting on issues, that you stay focused on your district and what your district needs. And therefore, when that funds come down, the funds are coming down so that you can now put that money into areas where your constituent base can get their EBT card. Okay? And make sure that they're getting the food that they need. But also, if there's any economic money that's coming into the Congress and it needs to be put in the district, make sure that that economic money is being placed into grocery stores. And you know, you don't have to have a grocery store that's a big box grocery store and the only people that own that grocery store is the home office. You can have relationships and say, okay, if you're coming into our community and we're going to be spending money with you, maybe we want 25% ownership in that grocery store. Therefore, they have a grocery store in your community, but you also have an investment in that grocery store to make sure that grocery store is successful, and make sure that you're holding them accountable in the type of food that they're putting in your grocery store. Because I don't know how many people know this. Again, we're talking about counting the costs. A lot of people don't know that a lot of times, if you're in a depressed community, then the grocery stores who are in the upscale community, they get all the fresh foods first, and then they just move those other items out of the store after they've been there for 3 to 5 days and just politely take them over into that community that is not a well-to-do community. Well, if you're elected to office, that's your responsibility to make sure that that does not take place. Right. So we have to hold you accountable for that. If you say you want my vote, then I have to count all of the costs. I have to count my costs of voting for you, but I also have to count the cost of what you are doing in terms of what you're bringing back into my community. Does that make sense?
Of course it does.
Okay, I try to do my show in a manner to make it simple for persons, because we hear people all the time say, I'm not going to vote. There's nothing, when I vote, my vote does not matter. And so I'm hoping that today, as I talk about counting the costs, as I talk about making sure that you are engaged and involved, that you understand that when people are elected to office, and this is on all levels, and I use Congress simply because there have been a couple of people who have lost their jobs in Congress and didn't even win their primary, but they stood on picket lines for other persons, supporting this group or supporting that group, and they're making comments and remarks. And don't get me wrong, it's not that those people don't need support, but maybe they don't need your support in the manner that you gave it. Because did those same people come back and help you win your race? Don't think so, because you lost your seat. But I'm seeing other people win their seats. And I don't want to call anybody out in particular, but if anybody is paying attention to races on a national level, in various states, like New York, for instance, Ferguson, for instance, you may have noticed that there was a loss of 2 seats in a primary. But if you look at Minnesota, there was a win in Minnesota in a primary. Now, these people felt that they should support their comrade, but did their comrades send folks down to Louisiana or send folks to New York to support them? And I say that because, and I use this analysis again and again, when you get on an airplane, they tell you, put your mask on first. Put your mask on first, then help others. So if you're not putting your mask on first, if you're not protecting your base and not protecting your home, then the chances are you're not going to survive. And as you see in New York and in Ferguson, they did not survive. They did not survive. So I just want people, as they're looking at these elections and looking at what's taking place, make sure you put your mask on first. Make sure you count the cost. When you take a position, you take a stand on something, that doesn't mean that you can't support people, but you might want to look at how you're giving support to persons and what your messaging is. Because if there's these two warring factions out there and you feel that one is being mistreated, you can say that. While I feel this person is being mistreated, or I feel this group or this organization is being mistreated, I also do not agree that a terrorist organization should do grave harm to another group of people. But you can also say, I also don't agree that this other group has the right to kill women and children. Know how to message things, okay? I don't feel that it's a-okay for this other group to say, well, I'm just going to level the whole entire nation and get rid of generation upon generation. See, there's certain terminology that you use can cause and create an outrage. Terrorists, genocide, things like that can, immediately create an outrage. So you may want to set the right tone, but still give the same or a similar message and stick to it. Okay. Count the cost. Again, as you know, Virginia we do elections every year. So to all of you who are registered to vote, we need you to vote, or you will be counting the costs when the election is over. To all of you who are a voting age population and you're not registered to vote, we need you to get registered to vote, because if you don't register, you can't vote. And if you register and don't vote, we still are at a disadvantage. Thank you. Thank you. All right. And we want to make sure that you understand what it means when we say count the cost. It means that when it's time for funding to be allocated to your community, if you have not been an active participant and you don't know who your representative is, the way you're going to end up counting the costs is they're going to be more interested in helping people who know who they are, who pick up the phone and call them, who ask for things, and therefore you're going to get left out or left behind. Now, there are a number of ways that you can register, and some of them are ways online. You can go to vote.org. Just go online, go to vote.org, and then go in, register to vote. It'll ask you what state you're a part of, where do you live, and you'll be able to register to vote. You can also go online to the NAACP national website, and you can click on the link to vote. You can also go down to your local registrar's office, wherever it's located. Whatever city you live in, they have a local registrar's office where you can vote. And many times, if you want to register to vote, keep in mind there are groups, organizations, associations who hold voter registration drives. Sometimes even in your churches, you will find that there's a voter registration form right in your church that you can register right there and take it down to your local registrar's office. So you're not without many, many ways to register to vote. But once you register to vote, we want to encourage you to get engaged. Don't just sit down and just do the one thing and that's it. You want to get involved in your local community, because we need everyone voting. Because when we vote, we don't just vote for ourselves. We vote for our loved ones as well. If we have loved ones who may be incarcerated, we're voting for them as well, because laws that are put in place affect them. How much they're being charged for bail. that affects them, and it sometimes affects the rest of the family, because if people raise funds to pay for bail, then that affects the whole entire family. So voting is important. And so when people say, well, I don't need to vote, it doesn't affect me. Oh, yes, it does. When the local government makes decide to assess your property and decide what rate is you're going to pay, that's affecting you. Voting affects you, because when you vote and you want that assessment fee to be lower per thousand, if you're not voting, you really don't have anyone to go to say, I'm concerned about this. But if you're a voter, then you can go to other groups and organizations and press them on lowering what your real estate rate will be when it's time for you to pay your assessment and pay your taxes. We also need everyone to vote, because complacency is not an option. Complacency is not an option. Complacency is costly. It allows other people to get in office who may not represent your needs or represent your concerns. So, therefore, complacency is not an option, but it's costly. It is extremely costly. Another thing, count the costs. Being uninformed can cost you gravely when it comes to voting. So we ask you to be informed. It's critical that you are informed. You want to check out reputable sites and reputable sources that you trust. And if you don't have any, seek out people in your community, someone that you do trust, and allow them to advise you where you can go and get accurate information, credible information, because there's a lot of misinformation being spread all around our community and all around the nation. In order for us to be able to counter that, we want to make sure that we're going to sources who are credible, who give accurate information, and who are trustworthy. That is a key thing when it comes to voting. Is it a trustworthy source? Is it a source of integrity? Because I'm sure you've heard the campaign right now where you hear this guy over here taking credit for the insulin price of $35. That's not a credible source, folks. That source is not credible. Make sure you are talking to people that are trustworthy, people who have integrity, and people who actually have studied something with regards to elections, studied the candidates, studied the information that they're putting forward. Do you have something, Henderson?
Well, on the topic that you said when you was talking about the grocery stores and stuff, because I worked at Colonial Store warehouses for about 8 years, and what you were saying is how they district the food in the community, because they're zip codes and area codes, and even in Virginia Beach, you got different stores, but people don't understand is certain food don't go to those stores.
Exactly.
So it goes to the lower income stores. And it's a lot they do in these grocery stores that people is not even aware how they can take care of the food and stuff. And it's important for us to try to support,
community grocery stores that are doing the right thing. And if they're not, we have a responsibility to call them out and say, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Been here a few times. Your meat they're not quite right.
Yeah.
You need to make sure that you upscale and bring better food into this grocery store.
Yeah. So it's important, with the things. when people are voting. I mean, when people are running for office, you got to ask them questions. Not for most time, when I go and look at sit and listen to people, you have people asking the same questions, but not asking in a different way.
Right.
And it allows the candidate to evade giving his honest opinion, but he's going along with the status quo.
Correct.
Don't answer that. Just answer it this way. And what happened is you think they are voting they're on your behalf, and they're really not. They're on the behalf of the people that say, hey, you should run for office.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. That is absolutely right. Right now, we are looking for 300,000 volunteers, and this is a message from the NAACP. The NAACP is looking for 300,000 volunteers nationwide. And if you have not volunteered, we encourage you to go on the website, and there's a place where it says volunteers, and volunteer, because this election is critical. It's critical for a number of reasons. There's grave concern with regards to how people may or may not be treated at the polls. So we're going to need poll watchers, but we also we need election officials. So if you're out there and you're retired or you work part-time, and you can go down to your local registrar's office and say, hello, I would like to be an election official. They get a stipend. I won't say they get a large amount of money to work all day long, but they do get paid. Poll watchers, on the other hand, unless a particular campaign is willing to pay you to be a watcher at the polls, may not get paid. But there are some PACs and other groups and organizations who are looking to support people who are willing to work at polls this year. The other thing that we're looking at is the fact that you also need to make sure that you have persons who can, attorneys and others who do what they call voter protection. And on election day and leading up to election day, if there are things that you see that is not quite right, you want to have a 1-800 number that you can call. Those numbers should be popping up very, very soon, where you can call these 1-800 numbers and say, I see something that's taking place that doesn't look right, so that you can have persons to check on that. Again, if you're not involved, if you're not paying attention to what's going on, as they used to say, if you see something, say something. That is definitely going to be very important during this period of time of this election season. And on election day, especially, if you see something, you want to say something, you want to report it, you want to let people know, so that we can make sure that everybody can go and vote safely. Looking at security, many of our groups and organizations may want to look at putting some type of security in place to protect folks coming to the polls. Because if some groups feel like their particular candidate may not get elected, we don't know what their behavior may be on election day, or what their behaviors may be after election day and after the loss. So we want to keep all of those type of things in mind. So again, get involved in your local communities with any of the advocacy opportunities that are available to you, that you feel like you can support. You want to check these groups out, and they can be persons who are working on what we call active GOTV programs. That is, get out the vote. I know that the YWCA is very actively involved. You can also find them in your local churches, advocacy groups inside of your church. They are members of all of these different social groups. Your local fraternities, sororities, NAACP, the YWCA, your Urban League, your National Council of Negro Women, or also known as NCNW, your Masons and your Eastern Stars, your Daisy Chains, all of these different groups and organizations. you want to go into warp speed in terms of being activated and moving forward with regards to this election this year. This is an unique election. I won't say it's unusual. It's new simply because this is the first time in the history that we have an African-American female candidate at the top of the ticket. So some people may be in favor of that, some people may not. And for those of us who have been actively involved in elections for decades, we're not concerned about whether you're in favor of her or not. We are concerned about how you treat others if you're not necessarily in favor of her. We have no problem with you saying, well, I'm going to vote over here. I'm going to vote for this person. Most of us have no problem with that whatsoever. But we do have a problem when you feel that you need to mistreat somebody simply because that is not your candidate of choice. That's why we have a democracy. That's why we have a republic, is because it allows us to pick and choose who we will or will not support. Now, if your candidate lose, go back home and wait for the next election and settle it at the election box, and not settle it with being angry or mean to someone who does not feel the same way that you feel. Okay, announcements, acknowledgments, and commemorations. Just want to announce that last week on August the 9th was Whitney Houston's birthday, and we will continue to miss Whitney Houston. Black Bike Liberation Week, August the 5th through August the 12th. If you haven't heard of it, Google it. They do a tremendous amount of stuff in the community, but most importantly, they want to engage our community more and more in riding bikes, not just around your neighborhood, but going across country, traveling from state to state. So, and when I talk about the Black Bike Week, Liberation Week, I'm not just talking about the motorcycles. I'm talking about actual put a little bit of muscle into it and ride the 10-speed bikes and all the different bikes that are out here over the high terrain bicycles and things of that nature. I'm not a bike rider, so I can't talk to it the same way that someone who is. And that's what I love. I love sharing with you. But those of you who are in these various groups and organizations, remind other people to support the things that you love and the things that you do. Okay. On this coming Saturday, the NAACP is going to host a nonprofit workshop. That's August the 17th, this Saturday at 9:30. It is going to be done at the Hive, which is where we have most of our events. And the speaker will be Veronica McMillan, and she holds a master's degree in administration, I believe. She has an MA, so I'm thinking that's Master's of Administration. So if you're not doing anything this weekend and you're looking for something to do, come on out on Saturday. These sessions have all been very good. Last week, of course, we did the wealth transfer, and the week before that was another wealth transfer event. Also, starting on Sunday is going to be another restaurant week for the NAACP. It's an opportunity for you to go out and support Black-owned restaurants. And we will, you can pull us up on Facebook and look at the different restaurants that we're going to be supporting. There's going to be people like the Happy Cafe. What is it? Poolside cooking, and other restaurants. I want to say 80/20 on Northampton Boulevard. We'll be supporting them, and they'll be supporting us with the ice cream social for our youth. So if you have young people who are looking for something to do, we're going to be at the 80/20 bar next week. Please pull up this information on our website as well as on our Facebook page. It's Virginia Beach NAACP on Facebook and our social media outlets. So, and then finally, next month, I still promote this. They don't do it as much as they used to, but September was always Black Dollar Month. And all throughout the month of September, we supported Black owned businesses. One of the things that we did back in the day is we went to the bank and we changed our dollars into $2 bills, and we would buy from all of these different businesses using the $2 bill so that it would show the amount of money that we were spending within our own businesses. But now that we have technology and everything, is easier to track. But that was the way that we used to track expenditures within the Black community and with our own businesses. And the last announcement I'm going to make is early voting starts September the 20th. And we're asking as many people as possible on the 20th of September, go vote. You will only be able to vote at your voter registrar's office because the other sites will not yet be open. But on September the 20th, go to early vote and vote at your local registrar's office on September the 20th. We want as many people to go out and vote as possible. We're asking everybody to wear white, just as a way of showing how we're coming together as a group, voting. And I asked our political action chair, is it okay if we wear a little red heart? And the reason why I wanted to wear a red heart on our whatever outfit we have on, guys, you got it made because you have a lapel on your collar, and so it's easy for you to be able to put a red heart on your collar. But I said, our vote is our heartbeat, it's our heritage, it's our legacy, it's our lineage, it's our bloodshed, it's our sacrifice, and our vote is our future. So when you put that little red heart on there, make sure that if someone comes up to you and say, well, why do you have the red heart? Have it roll off your tongue. And you don't have to roll all these things off, but you can say, you know what? My legacy is right here. That's my legacy. My future of my children, that's right here. So that red heart, it identifies our future. It identifies the sacrifices our forefathers made. And so wear that red heart. You can go to probably any store. You can, if you got red, red material, cut it out. If you have construction paper, cut out a bunch of hearts and pass them out to other people and put a little stick pin in it and just hand them out throughout the month of August, so that when we go into September, everywhere you look, somebody will have red hearts. I'll probably get my great grandkids to cut out hearts just for the fun of it. And they'll just be doing it just because it's fun to do. But we'll be able to take our pens and put it in there and hand them out at our meetings and everywhere. We should be giving out hearts everywhere we go, so that when the day comes on September the 20th, the first day of early voting, we will have on our white and we will have a red heart to represent our legacy, our heritage, our history, and our sacrifice. All right. What do you think, Henderson?
They sound like a great idea, because the heartbeat is where everything is.
It's our heartbeat. Yes.
It keeps your body and your mind moving. And
absolutely.
And it's a great concept. It's a great concept that you came up with. That is exactly what is needed, because what people don't know about, they'll study art. I'm an artist and all this other stuff. Things are identified. They identify with things. So that's why when people don't know, you get subliminal messages, even if you don't even realize it. But what you just did is just gave them a subliminal message that when they see that heart, they know that you care. It's caring. It's life. It's living. It's taking care of your family. It's taking care of your community as a whole. It's a heartbeat.
It's a heartbeat.
Without that heartbeat, there is no life. So you have to put life and substance in what you're believing in. And that's a great idea you came up with.
And for those of you who do not live in our area in Virginia Beach or in the Hampton Roads area, wherever you are, maybe you can share that same message with people in your respective cities, in your respective counties, in your states, and say, hey, I hear Virginia Beach, they're going to be wearing white, they're going to be carpooling, they coming together, their churches and those who don't have vans are going to be carpooling uh, to the polls. They're voting early. Some of the places are already going to be voting even earlier than we are here in Virginia Beach. And so, those of you who hear my message, make that your mantra. Say, you know what? I'm going to my pastor and say, hey, pastor, can we on the 20th of the month, can we use the church van, and take our people to the polls? Because there's something about going to the polls together that brings about unity. And if we have our white on and we have our heart on, now our heartbeat of our community is being seen everywhere. And I do believe on that same day down at the 757 events that there are going to be gatherings throughout the day where people can come down there and they can commune together again, where they may eat lunch or what have you. After they go to the polls and vote, they come back, they commune together, they have some hors d'oeuvres or what have you, or the happy hour menu. But you want to support these businesses. Don't just come down there and try to eat for free. We want you to come down there, and if there's an appetizer menu, buy the appetizers. If you can't afford to buy the whole meal, buy the appetizers. If they sold 30 or 40 appetizers, that's still value to that business. And for those who are able to buy the entire meal, buy the entire meal. But this is a way that we can support our community. Again, September is Black Dollar Month. So all of these businesses, you can go online for Hampton Roads Green Book and take a look at those businesses that are on that Hampton Roads Green Book. It's an electronic system where you can go online. Charles Black have Black pages, or the Black Book. Find these businesses, and throughout the month of September, make it your mantra that you will support Black-owned businesses all month long. Okay. But anyway, again, count the costs. If we don't support our business, what's the cost? The cost is they're going to go out of business. What is the other cost? The cost is those young people that they normally would have in those stores and those businesses, guess what? They can't hire them. So the cost is our children who would be at some of these businesses as hosts and hostesses will not have those positions. If they're in businesses where they have clothing or paraphernalia or t-shirts or whatever, if we're not supporting those businesses, then they're not hiring those 16-year-old, 17-year-old, 18-year-old and getting them started in learning how to be a good employee and how to operate in a business environment. So this is critically important. Oh my God, I can't believe we've done the whole show. It's 12:57.
Yeah. We still have a few more minutes.
Wow, we are coming to the end of the show. I hope this has been instrumental for you, educational for you. Again, we just have a conversation. Each week we have a conversation to provide information to you. And as we come to a close of today's show, I just want to remind people, don't allow yourself to go forward in campaigning if you don't have a plan. If you don't have a definitive plan, don't allow people to talk you into something. Or don't allow yourself to say, well, God told me to do this and God told me to do that. Are you sure? And don't find yourself supporting others who don't support you. Please don't run around losing your position because you took a stance on something that did not directly affect your community. I encourage you, be careful how you use your capital. You're giving away your capital to others as they keep their capital, their political capital, to themselves. So don't believe the hype. We see people all the time relying on folks to keep their word when they don't even keep their word to their own family or to themselves. So don't expect people to keep their word to you when they don't even keep their word to themselves. Again, politics is a nasty business, but as members of the community, it is up to you to hold elected officials accountable, because if you don't, it will be far too costly for you and your family and the generations that you will never ever see or ever meet. Today's show is Count the Cost. It came from the fact that I have watched too many candidates lose because they thought that they were smarter than the average bear.
Hello.
So we now have an opportunity to transform this nation. Don't miss out because you believe that who you are is more important than how people really see you. Because see, people see you very differently than how you see yourself. So don't think yourself as that important, because you may not be as important as you think you are. So again, this is Georgia F. Allen with GA for Justice. And thank you so much for listening to me today. Have a great day.
All right. You've been listening and watching the community activist Georgia Allen each and every Thursday from 12 until 1. And don't forget to pass this on to other people on your social media. And by the way, you also can email them and text this to their, electronic devices. But nevertheless, we'll be back next Thursday from 12 until 1. GA for Justice with Georgia Allen. Until then, don't forget, get out to vote.